Art is always changing, and that's a good thing. If art didn't change, then we would still be looking at cave paintings. However, has modern art compromised beauty? Most people agree that beauty is a characteristic of a person, animal, place, object, or idea that provides a perceptual experience of pleasure, meaning, or satisfaction. Modern art tends to be very abstract, and it's difficult to interpret it and derive meaning from it. Modernism, which began in the early 20th century, was controversial in its time. Modern art movements include Cubism and Dadaism. Picasso was the most famous modernist artist who produced paintings in the Cubist style. I'm not very fond of Cubism or Picasso because I prefer that people actually look real in paintings. Duchamp was one of the most famous artists in the Dada art movement. He was notorious for his avant-garde porcelain urinal, which he considered art. I visited my local art museum to observe and try to interpret the modern art around me. I also wanted to find out if my negative perception towards modern art would change. In this video, I will be critiquing modern art and comparing it with traditional art. At the museum entrance, I was greeted by the wholesome sight of a large black cube tilted at a weird angle. I entered the museum to find out if the rest of the artwork would be as abstract and odd. The sculpture I saw when I walked in was definitely abstract. It looked like a cross between a man, a moon, and an ice cream cone. I have no idea what the artist was thinking, but this modern sculpture definitely challenges the rationality of traditional sculptures. The first painting that I saw was Secret Garden No. 3 by Magnus Soderman. It was called Secret Garden, but I couldn't find any leaves or flowers in the painting. Without a doubt, this is a painting revolving around abstract expressionism. I stood in front of it and tried to interpret its meaning. Although the colors were pretty, it just looked like a wet smock. The next painting was interesting. There were definitely a lot of lines, but what did it actually mean? I looked at the description next to it to try to find out the title, but I was disappointed because it said Untitled by James Biederman. I then stumbled upon an exhibit called Expanded Access by Michael Jew. According to the display description, the artist's work deals with identity and social control. I walked away from it quickly because it was neither beautiful nor fascinating. The next display I saw was probably the most bizarre thing I encountered in the whole museum. It was called This Is Not a Pipe by Gavin Turk. Unsurprisingly, this artist failed his course at the Royal College of Art. This piece of art may have significance to Gavin Turk, but honestly, how is anyone supposed to interpret this? Art is supposed to fascinate people and not make them feel stupid. With abstract art, the artist has this grand idea that is very deep and confusing. The abstract idea compels the artist to produce something not so beautiful and display it for people who scratch their heads when looking upon it. I observed the same idea in the next abstract display called Incoherent Rest by Laura Cecchini. The display shows a hammock made of glass and is supposed to signify entering the realms of dreams and desire. I then visited the sculpture garden of the museum and was fascinated by this thingy, this thingy, this thingy, and this man with a cube face. Two of the sculptures were cool, maybe because I just so happened to love cellos and tea, but I stumbled upon an absolute joke which looked like tinfoil art. The sculptures of ancient Rome and ancient Greece were beautiful and took a lot of skill and precision. I feel as if sculptures today have regressed a lot in regards to beauty and proportionality. The sculptures of kings were spectacular in the past, but how do sculptures of kings look today? I stumbled upon the display Two Kings by Rosemarie Castoro. I stood there for a while trying to figure out why Rosemarie thought that 2 blocks of stainless steel looked like kings. Throughout history, artists have used beautiful women as subjects for their paintings. However, abstract artists completely improvise and forget to use models. This was apparent in the hideous, formless painting, Two Women Posing, by Larry Rivers. Yep, that's beautiful. I then stumbled upon Sides of a River, No. 2, by Joan Mitchell. I scoffed at the so-called artwork because it looked way worse than graffiti. Lastly, I saw something spectacular that completely blew me away. I don't think I've ever seen anything so beautiful and special. I'm talking about this oil painting by Susan Rothenberg. So, did visiting the art museum challenge my preconceived ideas about modern art? Not really. I still loathe modernism. There are many people out there who love modern art and abstract art, but in my opinion, art is supposed to be beautiful and interpretable to the viewer. The so-called progressive, innovative, modern art has compromised beauty entirely. Why did modern artists completely revolt against beauty and proportionality? Well, as they say, art is a product of the times. Modern artists were living in a chaotic world filled with war and turmoil. Their art reflected this chaos and absence of serenity. The lesson I learned from visiting the museum was that art should be taken seriously. With modern abstract art, anything in the world can be considered art. Therefore, art loses its value and society suffers immensely.